Start recording. Start Twitch. Excellent connection. Let's see if Twitch is getting it. Yeah, I should have invited some people from SCAD to come take a look as well, because it might be useful for them. We'll see how many people show up, but it'll be, I mean, it's the main deal is just like helping you really, so I don't really care either way. Channel, video producer. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice for people if they need it. It's
Me too. I know that at some point I'd probably like go back through just to be like, I don't remember this.
Yeah, it's fine. That's what this is for. Okay, Twitch is live. Excellent. Now let me switch YouTube to public. Done. Save. Okay, great. It's working. Perfect. All right, now let me go tweet it out, and then I think we can get send it out some pings to people, and then we can get started. Streaming now. YouTube. Let's see. Why does Twitch delete the YouTube link? Why? Come on.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't.
No, Twitch is weird with the streaming or like association with YouTube. I just know that.
No, it's Twitter. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, I don't know what's up. Like, because I put both links in. Maybe it's just like it's only trying to detect one.
Oh, it's only doing like an actual.
Yeah, yeah.
One.
3D and shaders. Blender. God, honestly, more people need to like just learn Blender, because it's actually not that. I mean, it is scary for a lot of people, but it shouldn't be. If I could learn it, you can learn it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Also,
I know for a while I was like approaching Blender. I was like, man, this seems so intimidating. But I actually went and like messed around. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun.
exactly. I mean, and it's really nice being able to like just vary up your workflow, right? Especially if you have like wrist issues or something. Like if your wrist gets
Yes.
tired, like just switching up the movement helps so much, really.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
yep. Okay, there we go. Pinged. Now I'm gonna ping on my own server. I don't know if anybody's watching yet, but it's probably not. Yep. Okay. Give me like 1 or 2 more minutes, and we will probably start talking about this. Tippy tap and tippy tap. It's all good, all chill. I mean, it's not like, probably not really an audience looking at either. It's fine.
I don't think anyone's gonna mind.
Yeah, that's fine as long as they can look at it later. And I'm not like a professional streamer anyway, so this is not high stakes to me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ranking in like 1,500 people. Ah.
Oh no, how terrible. Yeah. Let's see. One more. Pinging people. Social links. Good vibes. Blah blah blah. I think that's good enough, right? I mean, it's mostly for your benefit anyway. they'll come if and when they want to come. All right, cool. Yeah, let's get started. I mean, just like for posterity, I guess. Would you mind introducing yourself just a little bit?
Sure. I'm Sure, or otherwise known as Sarah online. I am an aspiring concept artist. I'd like to think, but I'm an illustrator. I do a lot of freelance work, and I focus a lot on painting. But now I want to actually understand Blender.
Yes.
You can find me at Sugar Day at Twitter and Instagram.
The links are should be up on his screen if you want to like just look him up. But Saren's cool. I really like Saren's work, and hopefully I might be doing some work of Saren in the future too. That'd be really fun. Yes, it would be really great. But yes, welcome to the stream/video if any of you guys are watching this afterwards. But yeah, I am Ryu. You guys should know me by now if you guys are on my channels. But yes, today we're going to be going over some Blender basics and some shader work in Blender. What I have here today is I loaded up this mech I downloaded from Sketchfab. I did not model this. I could, but why do that just for a demo, you know? So, cool. Let's talk shaders. Saren, what do you know about shaders so far?
All I really know is that there's several different like types of images for like a single type of texture for like a shader. That's all I really know.
Right.
The effect. I know that's one part of it, but that is I have a very minimal understanding. I've seen that part. And
Okay.
That is as much as I know.
So basically what you understand is that there are multiple images that you put into a shader to create a material, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about how basically textures, materials, and shaders work, right? So essentially you have a 3D model, and to actually wrap so how textures work is basically you're giving information to the 3D model and telling which part of the 3D models belong on the 2D grid. And using that 2D grid, basically it'll be once you input a texture, it'll basically map your 2D grid to the texture and project those textures onto your 3D model, right? So what that is called is a UV map. So if I select this piece and select all that and open up the UV editor in Blender, you can see these are all the UVs, right? Does that make sense? So basically these are all the little pieces. Like, okay, if I select, for example, this face, so you can see that this face is mapped here in this 2D grid. What that means is any texture image that you load into this grid, well, whatever is here will be projected onto your 3D model. So let's say if I add a default Blender cube, as one does, you can see it comes with a pre-created UV map. So this everything you any texture image that you put in here will be mapped onto your 3D model. Make sense? Okay, let me just randomly grab a texture from online. Let's see. Oh, this could be interesting. Let me download this. And then, oh no, it's a .jfif. No, that's great. Excellent. Yeah, let's use a JPEG instead. That's probably better. Okay, but yeah, do you understand the concept of UV so far? Essentially, it's called a UV because instead of like a XY axis, it's like a U and V axis. I don't know why they do it, but that's how it is.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I get it.
Okay, so
it just turns all the sides into a flat plane.
Yeah, basically, and it's telling.
Fly.
Yeah, so it's creating like a separate sort of like coordinate grid and telling like, okay, this is where you put textures and whatever. So, I mean, I'm not gonna completely explain this yet, but just to quickly demonstrate, where did I put that texture? Okay. Alright, so I drag the texture in, and if I apply it, it will apply onto your 3D object. So if we go back into our image editor, let's see, default.jpg, UV editor. So because this image is rectangular, it's not square, it's sort of stretching the UVs a little bit, but you can see basically, if I select this face, exactly what I said is happening. This part of the texture is being projected onto that part of the image. And if I move the UVs around, you can change what is projected there. Make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, that's why doing like UV work is very important. But as concept artists, like honestly, most of the time it is 100% not worth like going in and making like a nice UV map, because what you can get with like UV maps is like, oh, you can like start getting really detailed with them. You can like put a lot of time into like making them nice, right? You can like you can go in and like, oh, make sure like all the littles, because especially for example when we have a cube here, and you go into the UVs, it all lines up here, right? But you see how there are seams on the edge. If those seams don't line up and you have a texture that's supposed to go through the seams, it can start looking weird if you're doing texturing. But so like sometimes if you're doing like a professional asset, you probably have to start thinking about that and actually try and make the seams, hide the seams as well as possible. Try to not have like too many seams all around the place. So that's how you get like a really nice 3D model and like titling textures. But as a concept artist, you don't really have a lot of time to do that stuff. So most of the time, it's not worth doing it. Instead, what I would recommend is just use smart Blender's auto UV projection, auto UV unwrapping. So what you do is you select all of your faces, press U to go to the UV mapping shortcut, and you just press Smart UV Project, and it will automatically generate UVs for you. And that's most of the time that's good enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
What did you do to be able to select all the faces for an object?
A.
And
A is for all.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. To be fair, also I am using like the old Blender controls because I am old and I started using Blender before they updated to 2.8, and I'm still using like the old 2.7 hotkeys.
Right.
Yep. Oh, Tessa, is the stream like buffering really bad? I don't know if I can do anything about that, but let me see if I can try and like get rid of, like turn Steam off maybe. Maybe it's like doing stuff in the background. Hopefully that might help a little bit. But yeah, all right. Let's just press on as good as possible. But yes, okay. So yeah, auto UV unwrap, very easy. Smart UV project, that is about 80% of what you need. Like sometimes you can think about the other ones, but it's not worth talking about that right now. We should probably dive into shaders. But yes, so that is the basics of how Blender, well, 3D in general, projects textures onto an object. But that is not actually what a shader is. So let's talk about shaders, materials, and textures. Those are technically different things. So when you have, so what I have here right now is an object, right? So we have this monkey selected. I think it's called a Suzanne. The monkey, yeah, I think like Blender just likes calling the monkey Suzanne. So that we have Suzanne here, and you can go to our material properties, and you can see I have assigned material 002 to Suzanne, and that is your material. Materials are essentially made of as many shaders as you want. And do you know how to go to the shader editor? Yeah. So what I usually wait, do you know how to like open up like two windows like I'm doing here right now?
Yeah, I have two windows open.
Okay, cool. Like what I usually do is I just like turn the right window into the shade editor. So okay, let's open that up. So we have a single material. You can also have many materials as you want, but let's not worry about that. By default, Blender should have a principled BSDF node plugged into your material output. Do you see that?
Yes.
Cool. So the principal BSDF is a shader. That is a single shader, and you can have multiple shaders and mix and match them as you please. But basically, what a shader is just well, I'll explain nodes in a little bit. But yeah, what shader is it is one calculation of how textures should be applied to your object. What this means is like there are different ways of calculating the textures and using those textures, and you can sort of mix and match between them based on different parameters. You don't have to worry about that too much right now, but that is what it is. So this, our principal BSDF shader, is basically the universal shader. For about 99% of things, you don't need to use anything else. All you need is this. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, that makes sense.
Cool. Have you ever like encountered like a node system before?
As far as like, connecting these all of these settings to another window, is that what you mean?
Like okay,
I
so
see these nodes along the side. I don't know if that's what you mean.
so you see I just added another node, right?
Yes.
This is the bright contrast node, and we have like a principal BSDF node, and then we have a material output node. This is what I mean. Like each of these like little boxes is a single node.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so basically, each of these is called a node, and you have either input nodes or like output nodes. Well, I'm not exactly sure what to say, but basically there are nodes that give you an input, and there are nodes that process that input. And then basically what you can do with it is you can sort of treat it as like Photoshop layers. So for example, I have bright contrast here, right? Which is basically the same as like brightness and contrast in Photoshop. And you can have RGB node, which is just you can select the color. And you can plug that into this bright contrast node, and then you can adjust it with the bright, let's plug that into base color. So that it becomes the color that I selected the RGB node, and then you can make it brighter, you can make it darker. So basically it's very flexible. It allows you to do a lot of like different kinds of like mathematical and like mixing stuff. Like basically think of it as like you have an input, and then you throw it through a bunch of adjustment layers, just like in Photoshop, and then you plug it into where it's supposed to go, and you get that output. Make sense?
Yeah, I feel like that helps me
Cool.
understand it more, just because the layers and having specific layers to
Yes.
affect all the ones beneath them.
Exactly. So yeah, every every material is made of at least one shader node and one material output node, because you need to. This is material output is like, okay, this is what is actually showing on the image. You can have like and you can have like multiple shaders but not use all of them. So it's like basically whatever you plug into here will be what you see, and you need at least one shader node to plug into there. So let's talk a little bit about this principal BSDF shader, because this is basically the universal node, and you can pretty much recreate most stuff with it. There's only a few of these, so it's very intimidating to look at this, right? Because there's like a bunch of different options. But I promise you, you will not use about 85% of these. There's only 4 or 5 of these inputs that you really need to care about. So basically, you see how there's like a dot on the side of each of these inputs, right?
Yes.
That is where it's indicating it can take an input. and the green is like, okay, this is where you can, the left side is always input, the right side is always output. So you can see that there's like when I plugged in the color, I plugged it into base color. So that is one of the most important nodes, most important inputs for a shader, is what the color is that you want on the object. That is very self-explanatory. So let me quickly plug in the only nodes that are important. So there's base color, which is self-explanatory. There's metallic. Metallic is basically how metallic is your object. If it's black, then it's 0. If it's white, then it's metal. I mean, very simple, right? Makes sense?
Yes, it does.
Yep. So if you plug in a black and white texture, you can tell your object to like, okay, I can display parts of it as metal and parts of it not as metal. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And then to get like different artistic effects, you can do like weird stuff. You can like put it in like the middle. Like that's not really physically accurate, but if you want to like get like a specific look, you could do that. Cool.
Okay.
All right. So that's the second node you actually have to care about. The third node is roughness. Roughness is how rough your object is. So you can see if I put it at black, it's completely shiny, completely glossy. If we would put it white, it's completely rough. Cool?
Yes, I can see that.
Yep, very, this is not hard to understand at all. And then the third node you might want to care about is emission. Emission is glow. So you can see I plugged it in. Oh yeah, there's also like an emission strength, so this is like how much it glows. So basically that's how you make things glow. Yep, simple enough as well. So yeah, you don't have to like worry too much about that, but if you want it to glow, that's where it is. We also have alpha, which is the same as blender. So alpha is basically just how transparent it is. So I turn it real low, then it's become very transparent. If I turn it up, then it's not transparent at all. Cool?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just turn it opaque again so it doesn't look super weird. Alright, the last one you have to care about is normal. So basically, normals are a little bit more complicated. Normals are basically... might be easier to demonstrate. Let me turn off that emission for now. Okay, let's get a noise texture. Noise texture node. Plug it into normal. Just let me quickly sort this out. I hope I'm getting the order correct. Oh no, I think actually no, it should go into height. I think I don't need the normal map at all because it's a black and white. Okay, let it calculate. Cool. Okay, so now you see how it looks lumpy, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. So basically, what normal texture does is basically it tries and simulates. It doesn't actually change the geometry, right? You can see how the geometry is all exactly this. Wait, let me turn off the subdivision. It looks exactly the same as before. It hasn't actually changed the geometry, but it's mapping this texture onto your object and it's trying to simulate how light would bounce off it. So it's a way of like creating extra detail without actually creating extra detail, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. So you can see if like I scale the texture, then it's gonna make it bump. Like you can sort of see like how the light is changing, and it's making it look higher definition than it actually is. Tessa, would you normally apply all those maps for just painting over things when doing concepts? It depends on what you're doing, right? If you're doing like realistic work, I would. But for most of the time, I would, at the very least, use well, it depends, right? Because a lot of the time when I'm personally doing concepts, I am making my own my entire own I'm going to texture my concept meshes like entirely custom, right? You don't have to. You can just apply it if for example, if you just want to like get a quick render out to do like a draw over F, you definitely don't have to, right? You can just like, oh, here's like just pick colors and it's good enough. You can definitely do that. But if you're doing more realistic work and you're trying to like get like, oh, I need to do a paint over and not just draw lines over it, I would probably go into like Substance Painter or Quixel Mixer and actually make a custom set of textures and just plug them all in so it looks as realistic as possible. It very much depends on what you actually need to do with it. You don't have to, but it helps if you need to get a realistic result, if that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, all right. So those are getting back to what we were talking about. Basically, those are the only inputs you actually have to think about. There are other ones we can talk about, but like let's not worry about anything else because this is basically the absolute basics and all you need to know. Do you get everything so far, Sarah?
Yeah, I think I'm understanding it a lot better.
Okay.
As far as the specific ones that I would need to know.
Yes. So that is your universal shader, right? It's got like basically all the inputs for pretty much anything you might ever need to know, ever need to like do. But there are also different types of shaders. I will quickly show some of them. You probably won't have to like use most of these because like the universal shader is universal. It can do most of pretty much all of these. But for example, there's also an emission shader. So by the way, how I'm adding these shaders is that I'm just like using Shift A to. I don't know if to be fair, I don't know if they change the hotkeys since I learned them, but basically that opens up the add menu, and you can sort of see like, oh, here's all your input nodes, here's all your output nodes, here's all the different shaders you have, texture nodes and all that. They've basically categorized them so you can find them relatively easily. Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah.
And there's
we have this pretty similar.
Cool. Yeah, there's also a search bar, so like it's like, okay, you want shader, there we go. But yes, so okay, I added an emission shader. So this shader is only emission. This has no other output, no other inputs. So there is only color and emission strength. So basically, if you don't need any of these other inputs, you can find like a shader that only does that one thing, and you can do that. And it makes it just like, easier to organize and like lighter on computation.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Let's take a look at some other useful shaders. There's also the transparent shader. It just makes things transparent. Wait, no. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just makes things transparent, basically. Same as the alpha slider here, essentially. There's also the glass shader, which is actually quite useful because it makes things glass.
Nice.
Yeah. Very easy. There's also, okay, so there's some other interesting things here. So you see how the material output has a volume input?
Where is that?
Material output. Look at the...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you see how... wait, let me turn this back on. Alpha hashed. Alpha clip. Backface culling. Show backface. Okay, cool. So yes, it has a volume. So what that is basically, if you ever have thought about, oh, how do I add fog to a scene in Blender? That's what volumes are, right? It's trying to tell, okay, how much stuff is within this volume. So if I create a principled volume node and I plug that into the volume, it's gonna take a little bit to calculate. Turn that alpha way down. Oh, right, this doesn't work on Eevee. Let me turn to cycles. Okay, so you can see how it's no longer like object, right? It's become fog.
Yeah.
And you can turn it. Let's add like a light. So it's become fog instead of like an object. So that is what volume is. And that is also how you add like volumetric lighting to an area, right? If you ever thought to yourself, it's like, oh man, I really wanted to have like those nice like God rays. So what you can do is like create a material, delete the surface because we don't need any surface. All we need is a volume. Create a principal volume node, plug it into the volume, and then turn that fog way down. And then when you add lights, you get those nice light shafts.
Oh,
Yep, that is how that works.
cool. Awesome.
Yep. Cool. Yes. Okay. But so yeah, those are like some of the other different shader nodes that you can work with. Yeah. Let me go back to normal and not have it be all crazy. Where's my... Oh, that's like a directional light. That's fine. Okay. Sunlight. Let's just light this monkey. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, those are the different nodes that you actually have to care about and think about. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about some of the let's talk about different categories of nodes here. Okay, so first we have these input nodes. There's a lot of ones that you would not recognize. The most basic one that you have to know is RGB node. And oh, is that not in here? Oh, that's an image. Okay, let's texture. Oh, let's just talk about these categories one at a time, I guess. Okay, so most of these you would not actually have to think about. You can basically, if you look at a tutorial and it tells you add it, do it. But otherwise, you don't really have to think about that. Apart from the RGB node, the only one you might have to think about is the texture coordinate, I think. Yeah, okay, texture coordinate node, because that helps you manipulate UVs. But let's not get into that right now. You don't have to worry about that right now. Just putting that out there in case like a tutorial tells you do it. Do not care about output. We do not care about output because the only output you actually need is the material output, and that is there by default. Shaders, you know what shaders are. We went over that just now. Textures is where it gets interesting because essentially Blender comes with a bunch of textures. So you can see like there's a brick texture, there's like checker texture, there's like different kinds of textures here. So if we grab like a brick texture, we can actually plug that into our node, into our shader, and basically it's generating a texture and it has like a bunch of different inputs that you can play around with and mess around with. So if you just need like a quick brick thing, you can just do this. Yeah, so it's got like so basically they're built in, so they have there's a lot more flexibility with these textures. So like you can see like if I add like a noise texture, there's like, oh, you can scale it, you can change how much detail is in it, you can tell it how rough it is. So there's like a bunch of different inputs, so these are pretty useful. So those are inbuilt textures, and there's also image textures. And image texture is basically what happens when you load up an image from outside Blender, right? So if you drag and drop an outside image into Blender, it'll immediately load it up as an image texture, and you can just plug it in immediately. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. And that is also why the texture coordinate is useful, right? Because texture coordinate, you see all of these like purple dots, they all connect to like this vector. Basically, you can use these to tell Blender different ways of mapping it onto your image. So you can use a UV, like here. So it'll use the UV map of mapping this texture onto your 3D object. There you go. But you can also do different things. For example, camera will map the image based on your camera position. So it will look the same. The texture will look the same whatever way wherever you're looking at the image from. So you can see if I move around, the texture stays the same.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also like generated, which is just like it's trying to map it as well as possibly can, just automatically. Like so, if you have like an object with like shitty UVs, you can try messing around with this. But yeah, there's like different ways of doing this. But the most normal ones you have to think about is just like if you have a UV map, just use UV. That's like the easiest. Cool.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about next category. So color. Color is basically all of your like Photoshop adjustment layers, right? You've got like bright contrast, you've got gamma, you've got like hue, saturation, value, invert, light fall off, blah blah blah. Curves, yeah, you got all of these. Very useful. You've got vector. Don't worry about vector. You don't have to like really care about most of these. This is basically where all the normal map nodes are. Essentially, for normal maps to work, you need to either plug them into you need to plug your normal texture into like a bump map, a bump node, or a normal map node. So essentially, have you ever seen those like give me a sec. Let me look up example of this. Have you ever seen a normal map that looks like this? Like it's all like blue and like purple and like this.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yes, so that's.
I was like, I saw those like different variations for like a specific texture.
Yep.
I was wondering what
So
that was.
so that's all the different lighting information you can see. So like where you can see here, it's probably so like the cyan areas are lighter, and then like the well, I mean you can see what it looks like, right? Essentially that's all the lighting information. If you get an image like that, you have to plug it into a normal map before you plug it into your normal input. But if you have a black and white texture, you plug into bump map and then plug into your normal input. Okay?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Cool. Yeah, so that all makes sense. It's fairly easy. What's the next category? So that's where vector is. Converter is also other. Basically, these are converters, just all different like math nodes essentially. So you can see like there's like math. So you can sort of like add, multiply, subtract. So it's just doing. Basically, it's all technically like black and white textures, right? But like each pixel on the black and white texture is essentially black is 0 and white is 1. So you're using like that kind, like you're using is converting the color to math, and then you can like play around with it. So you can like, oh, if I have like a let's just quickly give an example. So all right. Oh no, did I just delete my texture? All right, cool. I'll add it back. It's fine. So I have this texture, right? And I plug it into my math node. And let's set it on multiply. And then let's create another brick texture and plug it in. So what it'll do is exactly like Photoshop. It will take whatever your original is probably brighten up the original texture a little bit so it's more obvious. Yep, so what it's doing is it's taking a brick texture and basically applying that as like a multiply layer onto your original texture. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's what that's for. All those math operations are in your converter. Yeah, you can like slowly look at these, but basically, yeah, don't worry too much about them. The only two that I ever use is math and color ramp. Color ramp is basically the levels in Photoshop. So let's do this. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's levels. So it's taking your values from darkest to lightest, and then like you can like use those sliders to like add mess with it, and then you can add and then you can also use that to actually map different colors to it based on the light and dark inputs. You see? So if I do that, move the other side, you can sort of like do that. Does that make sense? Cool. So basically just think of it as like more Photoshop layers. Converter and color are basically your Photoshop layers. Script, don't care about script. Group, don't care about group. Layout, don't care about layout. That's all you have to know. Those are different categories. Any questions?
yeah, I mean, it's helped to like. It is definitely a lot more like not terribly complicated, but like more spread out, more like a different style of almost like layering in of itself.
Yes, basically.
Which helps to think about because I think first approaching this, it was like seeing all the nodes.
It looks
Um,
intimidating, but actually it's quite approachable once you actually understand it. Basically, it
yeah,
goes left to right. You can very easily see exactly what each node does and where it's going. And you don't have to get fancy about it, right? Like you can very quickly see, like just by me doing this, you can understand how. Okay, so I have like a original input. I'm plugging it to like change it up, and I'm plugging it to change it up, and then it's going into the shader, and then I plug the shader into the output. It's not that hard. It's very simple. It's very logical. After you get used to it, honestly, it's very nice. Uh, cool. All right. So what you can also do is mix different shaders together, like I mentioned. So that's what a mix shader node is for. So let's see. We have a principal BSDF shader. Let's just add emission shader to make it glow. Let's make it glow like bright pink, so it's pretty obvious. Okay, so factor is basically just like how much of it, how much, right?
right.
Right. But you also see how factor has a dot next to it, which means you can put an input into there. So what we can do is let's make another texture. Let's use a Musgrave texture, plug it into factor. Give it a moment to calculate, and see, you can get different shaders on different parts of the model. And I can use like a color ramp. The compile shaders, and you can sort of like control that. You see? So it's very useful. Once you understand, like, you don't have to like know all of the different shaders, but you can do a lot just with knowing like the basic nodes. Oh, what nodes can I use to like change my outputs, right? And then like you just like have some outputs and add a bunch of nodes and change them up. You can have some very interesting effects.
Right.
Cool. Oh, one other node that I personally find quite interesting is if you ever need something to like glow, right? You want to sort of like that edge glow. What you can do is use a Fresnel node. What a Fresnel node does is it basically gets the outline of your image, of your object, I mean, not image. So let's plug that into this color ramp node. Okay, so basically you see like wherever you look at it from, it's getting the outlines of the object. So if you need something to glow and have like sort of like that magical effect, this is what you do.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so it's very cool. I really like the Fresnel node.
Yeah, I like that effect.
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Cool. Yeah, and that's the basics of how shaders work. Let's mess around with this a little bit more. Okay, so now we can start. Let's delete all these extra nodes that we don't need. Cool. Oh, one other cool thing actually. So if you go up here, you have object, world, and line style. Line style is for grease pencil. Don't worry about that. But world is actually quite interesting. Have you ever seen those like 360 degree images?
Yes, I have.
Yes, so those are actually called HDRIs. HDR images are like, they're basically 360 degree images, and you can use those as backgrounds and light you're seeing with them actually. So let's quickly, for example, let's drag one of these in. In Blender, you have to like specifically use an environment texture node. So the Blender knows is a 360 degree image and not just like a normal image. If you select that and then plug that into this background node here, it becomes your background. So even if I turn off all of my lights, let me make it invisible. So my seeing is still lit because the background is lighting my image.
Okay, so it's almost like it's almost automatically generating like
Yes,
a type of light source based on the image.
very much so. Yes. So so you can sort of like manipulate that, and you just like it's a very easy way of like lighting your scene and make it look natural because it's getting all that bounce lighting from the image itself. So like it looks very nice without a lot of work. Cool.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then so let's switch back to object. Cool. So let's give an example of what we can do of like a functional material, right? Well, okay. So we've talked about shaders. We've talked about what textures are. So let's talk a little bit about this property, these materials, right? So you can see these. This is your list in the middle. This is your list of materials. You can add material slots and you can take away material slots. So if I add a material slot, you see I have 2 material slots now, but there is no material in the second slot. So this is how you have multiple materials on a single image. But you don't have a material slot. I have 2 material slots, but no material. What do you do to select a material? You can either create a new one, or you can press here to browse the existing materials in your image and select that and add it into your object. Cool?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make this material O2. Let's make that like a metallic pink. Cool. So it's very obvious. So now we have 2 materials on this object, but it's all still one single material. Why is that? It's because we haven't told Blender where to actually apply the second material yet. How you want to do that is you go into edit mode. You can select faces. You select your second material over here and you assign it. So that's, you can tell Blender where you want different materials to be put on your object, and that's how you get multiple materials. Cool.
Yeah, I've kind of used some of the materials, and at this point, I mean, I haven't really gotten into actually. I've only put like basic colors.
That's fine. But yeah, so you can also like quickly tweak your settings here. You don't have the flexibility of the node graph because you can't add nodes. But if you only need like the basics, you can just access them here. Down here, settings is also useful if you're working in Eevee. Do you understand the difference between Eevee and cycles?
I do not.
Okay, so basically Eevee is your real-time render and cycles is your path tracing render. So Eevee basically works like a video game render where it's like, okay, this part is light and this part is dark. It won't create bounce lighting. Cycles is much more high quality. It will actually calculate where the light is hitting and bouncing, and it'll make it basically it's just better, but much slower. Eevee is faster. You don't need to have like any render times, but it's usually not as high quality. Cool.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
I can see that difference.
so that's what the settings for, because like on default the blend mode will be on opaque, and if you turn down to alpha, it won't work. You need to go in here and make turn the blend mode to alpha blend to make transparency actually work. Yeah, and then you can also like play with the other settings. You can like make I can show the back faces of the object, which you usually don't want to do. You can use screen space refraction, which is how you get reflections in Eevee. Yeah, it's just like a bunch of different settings, but the main one you have to think about is alpha blend. And if the shadows don't look correct when you're blending with alpha blend, you can go around and like sort of like play around with these settings as well. But the main one is just opaque, really. Cool?
Cool.
Okay, right. Let's talk about how you get textures in there. So obviously you can just download textures off the internet, right? So for example, like I did earlier, I can grab the texture that I downloaded, drop it in here, and plug it into your base color. There we go. We have a base color, but this doesn't. Oh, Tessa, I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So basically, But oftentimes if you just look up a texture on Google, you're not going to have the full set of textures, right? You're not going to have like the metal map, you're not going to have the roughness map, you're not going to have everything. So that's actually not quite as useful because it's just going to be one thing. You still have to make everything else work. But what you can do is you can create those textures with your basic color. So if for example, let me find something else. Let's see if I can find a grass texture or something that we can play around with. All right, cool. I found a nice grass texture. I'm downloading. Give me like half a second. Cool. Now I have it. And let me drag it in. Oh no, it's a wrong file format. God damn it. Stop.
I love finding those AVI
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Very useful. Thank you, Google. I hate those.
Yeah.
Just give me a JPEG. JPEG or def. Either one will work. All right, cool. JPEG. There we go. All right. So now we have a grass texture, but we don't have metallic and we don't have roughness. Thankfully, grass is not metallic, so we can just turn it down. But now it doesn't come with roughness, right? You can turn it to like perfectly. You can like just do that with like a singular. You can do that with the slider here, but it's not gonna look correct because it's not based on what those what the texture actually looks like. Instead, what you can do is you can create textures from just a base color. For example, you plug into hue saturation value, turn down the saturation, and what that does is just make it black and white, right? So now we have a black and white texture to start working with, and we can plug that into our roughness, and you can see that we are starting to get some variation on there. But obviously that's not correct because that is still too glossy. So we can add a brightness and contrast node to make it more diffuse. And then pump up the contrast. So yeah, you can start to, well, it's not super obvious because, but yeah, you can basically see like how you can start creating textures just from a single image. We can also do that with normals. Like I said, if you have a black and white image, you can use a bump node to turn it into a normal node. So what we can do is we plug that black and white image that we got from the hue saturation value into bump. And now you can start to see like it's the surface is starting to look a lot more detailed, and I didn't need to get any other textures. All I needed was a single input, and I can manipulate it to get different kinds of textures out of it.
Okay, yeah, that I was thinking of it as like, because the way I would look up textures is they would have like 3 or 4 different versions of the same
Yep.
image, and I was like, do I have to have all of them?
Yeah.
But
So you can just do
very
this.
useful.
This is actually very useful for, especially for concept art. I'll talk a little bit more about getting other textures, but let me talk about what Tessa asked in chat for now. Okay, so Tessa asked, I recall you mentioning yesterday sometimes I throw stuff into ZBrush and work in ZBrush. So when do I choose Blender over ZBrush and vice versa? So it's very simple, right? Basically, ZBrush is very good for one specific thing, and that is sculpting organic forms and working with very high poly counts. So I will only use ZBrush if I need to create like a really nice organic form and do sculpting. Blender also has really good sculpting tools, but I've honestly personally gotten used to like ZBrush better, and also ZBrush is better at handling just like millions of polygons. Blender is okay, but like by the time you get to like over 1 million polygons, it's going to start stuttering. ZBrush will not care. ZBrush will be fine all the way up until like 200 million polygons. So Basically, ZBrush is very good for that. So sometimes if I need to do like automatic UV unwrap, with like 50 million polygons, I'm not going to do that in Blender because that's going to literally take it like 5 hours to do. Instead, I'm going to throw it in ZBrush. ZBrush is going to take like 20 minutes, but that's much better. Or if I need to like do like sculpting, I'm going to throw it in ZBrush. Basically, ZBrush is for if I don't care about getting nice forms and I only want to either I want to do something really quickly, or or create organic forms. Blender, if I need to have really clean lines and very well defined forms and be like careful about it. ZBrush is quick, dirty, and messy, and Blender is just it's better for being careful, I guess. Let me know if that makes sense to you, but that's how I personally go about it. Like there are times where I do like hard surface sculpting in ZBrush, but I'm not going to take the time to make it actually look nice. It's basically if I just need it really quick and I know I'm going to paint over it and make it look good in 2D anyway. All right, cool. Let's get back to what we were talking about. So yes, let's talk about finding those textures. Obviously, there are websites online. So is it textures.com? I think it's literally just textures.com. So they give you like free credits where you can like download sets of textures, but it is annoying because like it is limited in how much you have. What I would actually recommend you use is Texture Haven. Well, Polyhaven. Polyhaven is basically free. Like it's as free as you can possibly get. There's a bunch of nice texture sets on here. So you can see you can go in, and if you go to download, you can like choose like how high res you want textures, and it basically downloads the entire set, right? You can see you've got like the roughness, you've got the color, you've got the normals. So basically, you just go on Polyhaven, you can get like a bunch of these, you can download it onto your PC, and you can just plug them in. It's really easy and it's free.
Nice.
The
So
other,
how would you if you have like those multiple versions of that texture, how would you do it differently, or would it automatically be done?
it would basically be automatically be done. So let's quickly download one of these as an example. What do you like the look of? Let's do this. This is cool. We don't need 2K. Let's just do 2K. It's simple enough. Opening in 14 days. Opening in 17 seconds. Thank you. Thanks. That's actually very useful.
All right, come back in 2 weeks.
Great. Awesome. All right. Cool. Oh, it actually even gave us a dot blend. It's probably the circle. Well, you know what? Let's actually. Oh, I didn't extract it. Is it going to work? It might not work. Let me actually drag that out into its own folder first in case this doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's open that up. This should probably work. It's opening on my second screen. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's see if it works. Hey, it works.
Hey.
Yeah, so you can see basically they have the textures. You've got a base color, you've got roughness, you've got a normal, and displacement. I didn't talk about displacement, but basically displacement is basically it's just a black and white texture telling Blender where to like sort of like change. Basically this is telling it where to basically imagine it's like have you ever seen like a height map?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, that's fine. So basically it's the same idea as everything else, right? It's black and white. White means make this part of the model higher. Black means make this part of the model lower. So when you map it onto a 3D image, so you can see like how like it's actually the geometry actually looks modified.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so let's take a look at the displacement. Okay, so this is like, okay, where it's white, it's going to go up, and where it's dark, it's going to go down. That's all it is.
Okay.
And that's also what the displacement input for the in the material output is for. So you can see is they're plugging in the displacement texture into a displacement node, and then it's plugging into the material output. And you can sort of like set, and you can sort of like mess around with settings to make it go higher. Oh, it is like it takes a little while to load, but you can see like you can sort of like based on the input you can change it and make it displace differently.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let's go back. So yeah, so you see basically it's just like you get your base color, you get a roughness, you get a normal, and it just plugs it all into your universal BDSF shader, and it becomes a really nice texture. So let's apply it to our Suzanne. Let's talk about this a little bit. Textures. Okay, so now what we do is we just drag those textures in. We get our displacement over here. We get the normal here. We get a roughness here. Okay, so obviously they labeled all of these. So what if you see DIFF, that means diffuse. Diffuse just means exact same thing as color. So you plug that in, you get a color. You get a roughness, you plug that into roughness. It's not metallic at all, so just keep that at 0. You have the normal map, we plug into normal. But don't forget we need to plug that into a normal map for it to work properly. Normal map node, so you plug into normal map node. And then we can plug displacement into displacement. Oh wait, we need displacement layer. Displacement node, I mean. Plug that into height. Plug displacement into displacement. And displacement doesn't work on UV. So go to cycles. There's probably some other experimental. Whatever, but here. So you can see how all the textures are plugged in, and it basically plugs, it basically just works.
Oh, wow.
Very simple. You've got everything you need. Yep. So yeah, if you go on like Polyhaven, you can find a ton of textures. Other thing I like to do is I use Quicksilver Bridge. Tessa, yes, it is. Well, it's not really a layer mask. It's basically the same thing. Think about it just like normal map, but like it's actually changing the geometry essentially. All right. Anyway, so I also use Quixel Bridge. Basically, Quixel Bridge is part of like the Quixel's workspace. Quixel is a photo scanning company that's owned by Epic. So basically, they work with like Unreal a lot and stuff. But basically, they have like thousands of textures and 3D assets they can use for free as long as you have an Epic Games account. So you create you download Quixel Bridge, you create an Epic Game account, you log in with that, and then you can basically use all of these for free. So you can see they have like a bunch of textures here as well, bunch of materials, and a nice thing about using Quixel Bridge is it actually plugs right into Blender. So you can see I can change the resolution here. I also have export settings here. So you can see the export target is Blender. So let's quickly download one of these. And give my slow ass internet some time to download it.
I feel that.
UK internet is terrible. I'm used to like 1,000 gigabit internet back in Hong Kong. Over here it's like, hey, you have 80. I'm like, god damn it. Cool. Nice. Great.
Oh,
Yeah, but okay.
it's just the worst now. I get it.
It sucks.
Over here, it's not any better with all the companies.
Oh, right. The US is not great either. Yeah, there's monopolies. What can you do? But yeah, so we've downloaded this material now in Quixel Bridge. All I need to do is press export into Blender. Oh, it couldn't export assets, blah, blah, blah. Oh, maybe it's because of a new version of Blender. Okay, maybe...
No, telling you to update.
Yeah, it's fine. Maybe because there's a new version of Blender, because I probably installed in the old version of Blender. That's the thing. Let me check. It's probably installed in an old version. Fuck it, it's not worth it. But normally it should literally just like create a material in your Blender file, and you can just literally just select it immediately. It's usually very useful, especially if you work with Unreal, but it's fine. We don't have to actually use it. But yeah, that's another way of getting nice textures into your image. Cool. Make sense so far?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. So yeah, I think that's basically all the basics of layers you really need to know. There's more advanced stuff, but honestly, like, look up tutorials if you want to do specific things don't know how to do it, and just do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
I feel like this helped me like understand like everything that really would be useful to me as a concept artist to understand.
Awesome.
And I feel like looking up tutorials after this would actually make sense, just because I was going into it and it did not click for me.
Cool.
People described it.
That's, I mean, totally fair. Oh, right. I don't have Blender Kit installed. Give me a second. I was, Blender Kit is also very nice. Basically what Blender Kit is it's a library of models and materials that you can use right in Blender. A lot of it is free. Some of it is not. So there's like a subscription, but like there's a bunch of free assets on here as well. Let me quickly install this so I can sort of, well, let's like do like a bit of texturing and shader work on this mech and mess with it and see what we can get out of it. Oh, actually, one more really cool thing actually that I want to show you. Let's use a monkey again. Okay. All right, so one more cool material thing that we can do is, okay, we're in cycles already. All right, cool. Is ambient occlusion node. I actually really like the ambient occlusion node. Do you know what ambient occlusion is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So basically, this generates your ambient occlusion. So you can plug it straight in. Yes, you get ambient occlusion. And what this does is really nice because you can pump it up to just like make your image, make your model look more contrasty, and add extra free shading to your image. But what you can also do with that is, for example, if I have, let's say, RGB node, let's plug that in. So we have, let's say, here, and then we want to add, let's create sort of like a dirty sort of look, right? Let's create like a sort of RGB. Let's put on like sort of like brown, and then mix. No, not vector. Color. Yes. Okay. Noise texture, RGB, and then we multiply that together. What do we get? We get like a scale it down, get more detail out of it, more roughness, scale it down even more. Just get like a nice dirty sort of look. Turn that black and white so you don't get that extra weirdness. Okay, so now we basically have like a dirty texture here out of this multiply, and then we can mix the original sort of beige color with this and plug it into here. Okay, so you can either have it just like beige or you can have it brown, right? But what instead we can use our ambient occlusion. Oh, that's doing the wrong thing. So let's invert that actually. Okay, so you can see we can start using the ambient occlusion to sort of like bleed that dirtiness into, like, for example, into the ambient occluded areas, which is where dirt would wear up. So so you can start making it, use the ambient occlusion as sort of a mask to just like quickly apply sort of like wear and tear to your object as well, which I think is very cool and I love it. Ambient occlusion is great. But yes, so all right, let me quickly install a Blender kit. Oh god, it's probably gonna do downloads as well though. Let's see. All right, cool. Thumbnail, blah blah blah. It's been a while since I used Blender kit because usually I just work with usually work with Quixel, but it's refusing to work right now. So materials, cool. All right, cool. So let's just like start doing like some actual texture work here with this mech, and we can just I'll sort of talk you through what I'm doing. I mean, it's like we've basically gone over all the basics though, so you probably get most of it, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's just like go for. So let's just like sort of see it in action. Let's see. Okay, cool. Painted metal. You can see all these popping up. Oh, I think we should filter by free. How to do that again? Blender kit, categories, search filters. No? Well, I mean, it's fine. Any of these will work. Black metal paint. All right, cool. I like this one. It should be downloading it. You can see, oh, there we go. We immediately get a black metal paint.
Ooh, that looks so cool.
Yep. So you can see it's created like all these nodes here already. So
Oh wow.
if I don't want it to be black, I can go in here and mess with the nodes. So for example, let's see, we can see that it's going into a color ramp, and then it's adding those two shaders together. So let's just start messing with this and make it not black. So let's see, what color would I like it to be? Let's make it red. I mean, that's sort of classic. Okay, interesting. All right, and then let's go and mess with that slider. And let's put it let's make it like a more of an orangey red. I think that's sort of nice. Cool. And let's not make it so shiny. They put the metallic at 100. Damn, alright, that's very metallic. But I don't like that, so let's make it not metallic. Gonna take a while to compile.
Taking his time.
It's taking its time. Cool. Okay. And I don't like that it is so rough. No, it's so glossy, I mean. So we can go in, bright contrast. And let's pump it up so it's it's more rough. Pump up the contrast a little bit too so you don't lose those details. So yeah, we have that now. Cool. And then let's get some steel in here. All right, cool. Right, just to make sure we're not interfering with. Let's download it onto this object instead. Okay, so now we have a stainless steel over here. So now we have, okay, so we have all this. Let's copy that. Select our original shader, material I mean, and we can copy that entire node that entire shader into here. So we have all the stainless steel stuff in here now. So for example, when I press it here, it turns into stainless steel. Cool. But we want it to mostly still be the paint. So we have the stainless steel over here, and we can start mixing those shaders. Let it calculate. By the way, if you have like just like any questions or stuff like in the meantime, just feel free to ask.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
Cool. All right, so we have that. Let's have a Musgrave texture. Wait, which one's the Musgrave texture? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so it's very much like this. Cool. All right, so we have this Musgrave texture. What I want to do now is I want small patches of the steel to show up on this like painted this painted part of the mech. So we need to start creating patches, right? So let's do this. So we have this basic Musgrave texture, and we have this noise texture. Let's scale that noise texture up. Turn that roughness down. We don't need to distort it. We don't really need detail. And then let's color ramp it. So we get these nice patches. Maybe we can even... Okay, cool. Something like this. And then we can filter that a little bit more to get those finer edges. So maybe let's use... Which texture should I use? Voronoi? Voronoi is sort of maybe a bit too crazy. All right, let's just use another Musgrave texture. Yeah, all right. Cool, so we have this. Let's mix. Multiply. Oh, we should be looking at this. All right, cool. So let's plug in a Musgrave texture and add a little bit more of grain to it. So detail, dimensionality, color ramp.
Just a heads up, I got 14 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm just showing you like how you can like different ways of manipulating these textures. We'll wrap up. Today will be sort of a short stream. We're just gonna like wrap it up in a little bit, but yeah, this hopefully should help you with like just getting a cool start on how to manipulate and use textures.
It definitely will. I feel like I'm probably gonna rewatch this and try to recreate what you do just to like fully understand it myself.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, now we have like these little patches throughout the thing, right? And then we can use this as a mask, essentially. Wait, what was I going to do with this one? That's fine. Don't need to worry about that. All right, cool. Okay, so we go back to this original shader, and we can use our plug this in as the factor to tell it where we want it to show up and where we don't want it to show up. So now we have small patches of steel.
Whoa.
Cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very nice.
It's always nice to see it like fully like come together with all the textures.
Yep. And let's get some ambient occlusion in there. Oh, no, I mean mix color. Okay. Plug the ambient occlusion in. Invert the ambient occlusion. Color wrap this. And plug that in. The calculation always takes a while, especially with these like more complicated node graphs.
Oh yeah.
Just turn down the value. And yeah, Tessa, combining textures, I assume combining textures is kind of a thing you just pick up with experience, like the general knowledge of what goes together and things that don't, the ways they interact differently. Yes. Basically, you start out as simple as you can, and then like as you think of more complicated effects, look or ask people how to do them. Just like look up tutorials, ask people, and then like as you need them, learn how to do different effects just based on what you actually need to do. Like most of the time, you can just get away with doing like basic textures. You don't need to like go really hard into like making it like very complicated, like like I am doing right now. It's completely unnecessary. But if you know how to do these complicated things, it can be very nice. So, yes, basically, don't worry too much about it. This is something you pick up with experience. And like I said, it helps if you think of it like more like Photoshop, where it's just like a bunch of different like layers, really. So let's do that for this as well.
It's a lot like clipping layers too.
Basically, yeah.
Like,
Cool. Yes. Okay. And we can... Oh, it's all in one object. Alright, that's weird. Thanks, whoever made this model. But that's fine. So I was thinking we can make this part of the model a different color. Oh, it's loading. So let's just select all of these. All right, cool. And then now we go into material and then assign that second material slot to this part. So what we can do is we can grab the black metal paint. If you press over here on a new material, it'll create a new material, but basically copy the first material. So now what we can do is we can just go in here and make this, let's say, blue. Where's the other one? All right, here. This is a lot of inputs, so all right, cool.
just gotta look for it.
Yep. Yeah, there we go. I mean, it was already blue as the basic before, but yeah, you know, like I could just like select a different material, make that blue. We can start just like sort of start painting with that. I'm gonna select out this part, make it blue. Select out that part. Sort of like paint a little bit here. Make it blue. Nice. You know what? That actually is sort of nice. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. All right, cool. Okay.
Nice colors put together.
Yep. I mean, it's a classic, right? Blue and red.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to mess up. If I do, I should be fired. Don't. No, I'm kidding. Don't fire me.
Take away my career.
God, please don't. Cool. Yeah, so basically that's how you start like just adding textures and messing with them and start adding variants. You can take like these basic techniques that like we have here today and just like start messing more and more with them. How do you do how do people bake curvature? I don't actually know how they do it in, because like I have an add-on actually that helps me do. Give me a sec. Let me try and do I have it installed? Enabled add-ons. Let me check. If I don't, we won't talk about that. I don't think I do have it installed. But let me look it up on Blender Market so I can show you. I have this add-on, which is very nice. I got it for pretty cheap, actually. I got it when it was like $15, I think. But basically what this does is just like, it adds wear and tear with like a single button. So like it just sort of like generates wear and tear for you. And it can like sort of bake like the curvature. So like instead of only... Actually, oh, is that how they do it? Maybe, okay. I think I might know how to do it. So let's see. We have ambient occlusion mode, right? Let's use that. No, wait, this is the wrong one. Let's use the main ambient occlusion. Let's use that as our color. Okay, so color ramp. Make sure it's only there. Let's invert. It's not quite the same effect. It is not exactly the same effect. Interesting. All right. I don't exactly know how to do it, but basically, like you can, they can like get like allow you to like only apply materials on like the edges, right? So that's actually very useful, and it's something I usually use Substance Painter to do because I don't actually know how to use it do in Blender, because Blender is actually not the most powerful for like actual texture painting. Also, Talaran stream's going pretty good. We're just talking about Blender and shaders. It's pretty nice. I think Saren has to hop off in a little bit, but it's been really fun.
Yeah, it has been a lot of fun. I find this very fascinating, and I know I don't have a lot of questions, but it's usually when I'm in the thick of it and I'm like applying it.
I get you.
I'm probably gonna bombard you.
No worries.
With questions.
Let's talk about one more quick thing before we wrap up with you and you have to go. So let's talk a little bit about painting. So how you want to, if you can also paint in Photoshop. No, I'm Blender, I mean. So we have image, you can create your own image texture. So let's just create a new image texture here. And then we can go to this is the wrong mode. Texture paint mode. Yes, there we go. Cool. If you go to like your tools, you can make sure, okay, we've got, it's untitled, but yes, so we've got the untitled image texture selected. Where's symmetry, mirror it, and see, you can start painting. And this is also how I paint like layer masks, if I need to get like a custom solution for that kind of stuff. But you can just start painting. You can, you know, it's like you can select, you can darken it, multiply it. You can even load like different kinds of brushes in. I mostly paint in Substance Painter, so I don't really have like any other brushes, but yeah, so you can just start painting it, painting actual textures in here as well, without like worrying too much about like going to like another software. Yeah, so hey, it's bright pinkish purple violet. I'm not exactly sure what color this would be, but yeah, so like I painted it, and now if you go into your image editor, you can open up, it was literally just untitled, right? Untitled. Yeah, so now you can see here's what I painted. You can sort of save it out, and then you get your own texture. Cool. Also, yes, Tessa's correct. There is a way of connecting like Photoshop to actually just paint in Photoshop and update it live. But honestly, I prefer just using Substance Painter. Tessa, actually, if you're around for a little while, we can hop on a call. I can like show you some Substance Painter stuff if you haven't used it much yet. But yeah, cool. Is it any, before we wrap up, you got any other questions or remarks, Aaron?
I do not, but I am very thankful for
Of course.
I'm definitely gonna watch it through again, but this has been very helpful, and I'm very thankful that you walked me through this.
Cool, cool. Is there anything I went too fast, or like anything like you might want to like note for me?
I think definitely the giving it more time when you were explaining all the nodes, because that way
Yeah,
I can like
it's
see everything on my end,
the
just
thing.
to like understand.
Yeah, the thing with that is that it's honestly not worth memorizing the notes. I went fast because there's just a lot of notes, right? You
Yeah.
shouldn't, and you really shouldn't try to remember everything because you learn those when you actually use them. So just look up how to use them. The main thing to remember is the categories. So you remember where to look for stuff instead of actually knowing exactly what each node does. Honestly, a lot of time I literally just like use the search bar and just like search for what I want. I barely remember where the hell they are.
Right.
Yeah, so don't worry too much.
I will try not to, but I will definitely go through
Of
and
course.
watch and recreate what you've done.
Awesome.
That's the way it connects in my brain. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me on and doing this tutorial, this little demo.
Of course, no problem. Glad I could help.
Yeah.
Nice. Alright, cool. Talk to you later then.
Yeah, you have a good rest of the weekend.
Cool, cool, cool. I'll probably keep on here a little bit more. I think I can talk about like Substance Painter a little bit, but I'll talk to you later.
Nice. Yeah, then I mean I'll catch up the rest of it later.
Okay.
Thank you again. You
No
have a good
worries.
rest of your day.
Of course. Talk to you later. Bye. Alright. So, Tessa, you've never used Substance Painter. You want to learn a little bit of Substance Painter because it's actually very cool. Do you are you free? We can do like a quick call if you want. All right, cool. I'll hit you up in Discord. Yo,
Hello.
greetings. Oh, I should have changed like the uh I should probably change like the social information I have on, but I'm too lazy to do that for now. But hey guys, this is Tessa who has been in chat in this entire time on Twitch. So she's very cool. She helps. I don't know like how many people here are from the concept art club, but she runs a SCAD concept art club, which I like to check up on and sort of like help out with feedback every once in a while. But yeah, so how did you find the? Did you learn anything useful from the Blender stuff, or did you know most of it already?
I did not know how many notes there were, so I'll definitely have to like go back and revisit that because it's super interesting, and I could probably apply that to maybe some films I might be working on. So
Right.
it's good knowledge.
Was there like anything I did that you hadn't seen before, or was it just like, oh yeah, like refresher?
A lot of it I actually hadn't seen before, so the only thing I'm familiar with is projecting with quick edits, using Photoshop and like using image and EYEK to project onto UV maps. So that was like all new for me.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm glad, like, yeah, at least now you know where to look for this smart UV projection.
Oh my
That's
god, it's
so
simple!
useful. It's literally right there. You should have noticed it before.
I searched for hours on YouTube and everything was like, you have to make your own seams. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
You really don't, and you really shouldn't. That is terrible. Oh no, is Substance? Oh god, right. I put everything onto OneDrive, and now it has to download everything again. Oh no.
That. That's
Cool.
quite the name.
What?
It was like downloading meat.mat, and they have some interesting names for their files.
Yeah, I don't know. I have just like a bunch of I have like because like it's got because Substance Painter comes with a bunch of textures already, so it's basically I mean there's like a whole bunch of like the default textures that comes with the program, so it might take a little while to download. I don't know how long it actually will take. Let me take a look at that. Automatic file downloads. But yeah, honestly, Blender does pretty good for itself most of the time. It's just really like basically like Substance is just better though, because it's like ZBrush, right? It's really good at that what it does. So Substance and Quixel Mixer, which I can actually also show, is dedicated for texture painting. I still think Substance Painter is better though, and I will demonstrate why in just a little bit. At least I don't think Mixer will require me to download anything. I hope. I could be wrong.
So I assume it's like, kind of like how different, like you, hold on, brain is thinking. So it's like, I assume the file formats are kind of like Photoshop, Procreate, and
Yeah, it's got
CST.
its own file format for saving things, and then you export textures out of it, essentially. I do believe there are live plugs in that you can plug into like other stuff though. Oh look, Quixel Mixer is downloading as well. Oh, but I think it's just going to let me start though. I think. Okay, yeah, so it'll actually let me start instead of just like making me wait though. So that's cool. Let me see if I restart Substance Painter, it'll let me do something. New project, new test, add project. Well, let me start. Oh my god. Oh, right, because this is not wait, let me check. Do I have Let me quickly check because I'm logged in with my work account. That's right. It's got weird shit with that. Yeah, thanks, Adobe. Adobe is great for just making things more convoluted than they should be and have to be. So I love that about them. And I do not have any complaints at all.
I have plenty of complaints. I'll just say it outright.
Cool. I mean, totally fair. Using Adobe as a paid subscription. Fuck. It's actually not gonna let me do this. Oh my god. Why Substance? Do I have to log into my work one? I have Parsec. I could technically Parsec into my work computer to do a demo, but the resolution is going to be terrible. And also I have like NDA shit on there, so I shouldn't. That is not a great idea. Fine. Maybe I'll just use Mixer for now. Thanks for making things complicated, Adobe. I'll sort this out later. Yeah, fine. I'll just use Mixer. Mixer works with is a Quixel program, so it just uses Epic. It is free. It is not as good, but it works. Let me set up with a 3D asset first, though. Let's load up a 3D asset. Hope this works. Okay, so the nice thing about Quixel Mixer is that basically it connects to the entire library of Quixel. Wait, am I sharing my screen? Oh no, I'm not.
I see like a parking meter thing on it.
Yeah, but you're looking at the stream, which is like a little bit delayed. There we go. I'm streaming on Discord as well now. Cool. Can you see?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you see like how like in the setup you have like type, so you have like planes, assets, custom models, shader balls. So obviously you can just like go to shader ball. It's the default shader ball. It's just a blank ball. But you can also load up custom 3D assets, and which means you can go into all of the Quixel assets and use any of them. So they are like a bunch of photo scan assets. So for example, let's use this rusty metal gazer, right? I just realized I don't know how to pronounce that. Gazer, yeah, okay. Cool. So once you download it, you can just literally just pop it into your project. Awesome. It should be downloaded. Okay, cool. So 3D asset, load 3D asset, load this. You can also load like custom assets, obviously. I can load like that mech I was working with earlier. Maybe let me see if I can. Custom model. Let me find that model I was working with earlier. Mech. And we have the mech. Cool. So you can load those models, and then this is basically Mixer and Substance are as close as it gets to Photoshop in 3D, right? Substance is better, but Mixer is fine. So for example, what we can start doing here is, so you see layer sets, right? This is where you have your layers. So let me go into, what do we have? Industrial. Let's look for metal. No, not all types. Surfaces. So we got we've got everything that Substance has. So let's look for painted metal, scratch metal paint, blah, 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 metal sheet. Let's probably use this. This looks nice. And we can just pop, well, once it's downloaded, we can pop it straight in. So what's super nice about Mixer is that it just comes with a huge library of really good and high quality materials that you can immediately pop in. Like that. There we go.
Whoa.
Yep, that looks pretty solid. And then you can go into here. So let's take a look. Let me expand this out a little bit. So apart from my layers, obviously we've got like all these like options over here. We've got opacity, you've sort of got height, you've got all of these. You've got like placement, which what is it doing? Okay, it's paused. Oh shit! It crashed. No, Mixer, why? This is why it told me update earlier, isn't it? Oh my god. No. I just wanted to show people how to use you, please. Fine, I'll do the setup again. This is... why? Why does this happen to me? Come on, I just... Be cool. The one time I need you to be cool when I'm showing you off to other people. Alright, cool. Let's just...
Programs choose violence.
Yes. No choice. Cool. Is it going to do that thing again if I open up placement? No, it's not. What happened last time? I don't... Okay. Cool, whatever. So, yeah, this is how you do all the projection stuff. So you have, like, tile projection, which is UV projection. You've got freeform projection. We've got, like, box projection, which is what you usually use. This is, like, triplanar projection. Basically, it's projecting it from, like, all sides. So it wraps onto your image really well, usually. Object, I mean. And you can, like, scale it. Height influence you don't have to worry about right now. Basically, that's for displacement, height, frequency, and you can also like come into here. You can like sort of like add, subtract, multiply, have like different, basically set a different modes for each of the texture sets. So, what is actually super nice about this, about Mixer and Substance, is basically it's like it is like Photoshop, but it's got tons of masks, right? Masking is extremely powerful in both of these softwares. So, for example, let's drag another texture in. So now you see we have these two textures on different layers. Cool. Metalness, roughness. Turn it on. So we've got this, right? So you've got this layer on top of the other layer. And now what we can do is actually mask this. So if I add a mask stack, you've got, if you come over here, you can have all of these different ways of masking this, right? So for example, if I put a curvature mask on it and invert it, nope, other way around. So it can basically do what I was talking about in Blender earlier, where it can just like get a curvature and add it on top of the curvature, you see?
That's fancy.
Yep, it's very nice. And don't forget, this is a stack of masks, right? So this is my basic mask, but I can add more modifiers on top. So for example, we can have normal. So this is the world normal, I believe. So for example, I can add it from one direction only. So you see it's only coming in from this side. Like that's not going to be super useful for this metal, but you'll see how it can be useful when we start working with it more later. So we can start, let's see, texture, solid, pattern. Let's do like a little bit of a texture. Amplitude on just maybe 1. That might be too much for this actually. Alright, you know what? Let's not do that for this. This is sort of like a metal edge sort of thing, right? So we don't need to like worry too much. We just need it on the edges. So, but where this kind of stuff becomes super useful is, for example, if we add a solid layer. So this is just a basic solid layer, right? But what we can do with this is we can start adding, let's see. Okay, let's say we want to sort of like bleach out the top of this mech, right? Maybe it's in combat for a long time and the paint is sort of like faded. How do we fade this? We use masks. So we go into, we add a mask stack and then we use the normal. We can point it upwards. So let's see, only surfaces that point upwards. So you can see only surfaces that point upwards are now selected, and you can add this color selectively. So now all we have to do is turn the opacity lower. Maybe put it on, let's see, let's put it on overlay mode, maybe? No, overlay is not really pulling it out too much. Add mode, fair enough. So you can fade out the top a little bit there. And then go back into mask stack. Actually, you know, that's fair enough. That's not too bad. So you can basically, you see what I'm doing, right? I'm just using all these like modifiers to basically start adding stuff really quickly. I can go in, I can add another layer, so sort of add like more darks. So let's go in here, let's do this, let's have like a nice dark color, add a mask, oh no, that's a paint mask, mask stack, do another curvature, inverted, I think. It's too much. Okay. Might be a bit too much. Let me think. Okay, soft mesh, underlying mix. Let's invert that back, I think. And then push it around a little bit more. But yeah, do you see what I'm doing yet?
Yeah.
Cool.
How like process intensive for computers is this? Like, do you need a beefy rig, or is like a basic like HP laptop able to do this?
A basic laptop should be able to do it. But basically, it just depends on how high resolution you're working at. For example, right now I have a pretty beefy computer, so I'm working on 4K. But if you have if your computer sucks, just put it on like 1K or something, and then export it out at high resolution. Then it'll be fine. Basically. Yes. Okay. So we have this. So basically, we added like this nice level of like sort of like just like wear and tear to it. So it's not just like this like super bright thing that you can't really work with very easily. And now we can start messing with fading it out. So for example, you can see if I do this, then only the position gradient, it only applies. So like the darkness will only be at the top. That's not what we want. We want things to be dark at the bottom. So if I do this, it'll start adding that nice sort of like weathering to the bottom instead. And we can use this as no, not add, multiply. Okay, so we only want to show up above there. Yeah, that's actually quite nice. Cool. Yeah, so basically you can start doing stuff really quickly and really nicely with just like a lot of these like modifiers. So let's see, I can throw in a noise pattern, set the noise pattern also on opacity, well on multiply I think. Wait, no, that's let me mess with this actually. Let me take a look. Is it on multiply? Okay, so it's multiplying out the bottom as well. Yeah, let me think. Overlay. Too far. Subtract. Too much. I think multiply was the correct call. Yep. Okay. That's fine. But yeah, you can sort of see just like how you can really, really quickly start adding stuff. This is really nice. Yeah, Substance Painter is like this, but even better, honestly. Let's see. I think you can only like paint stuff out in. Ooh, the music stopped. Give me a second. All right, cool. All right, so yeah, the Mixer is good because it's got like a big library of stuff you can work with. So this is a really good way of just like really quickly texturing assets. But Substance Painter, goddammit, let me see if I can get it working again. If not, like we can do this another day. I can do this. I can save this for another stream. But if I can get it working, I can sort of show you a lot of the cool stuff I can do with it. If I can't get it working, then it's fine. We can do this another time. I can actually do like an entire talk on like just Substance Painter itself. But do you get the general gist of like why it can be super useful?
Yeah, it's a lot faster than hand painting everything.
Oh, for sure. Oh, actually, I can quickly show you how you can get stylized stuff out of this as well. Because this is obviously very, very realistic, right? This is like obviously going for as realism as possible because it's only working with these photorealistic textures. But you might not always want photorealistic textures. What you can do with that is actually, let's see. So instead of doing this, let's just delete all of these realistic textures. We don't need any of this. Okay, so instead, let's just add a basic solid layer. We don't need metal. We don't need any of these. We only need, just set the roughness as, okay, as rough as possible. So get that nice diffuse look. And then we make our basic, our base layer. Okay, cool. Let's make a nice orangey mech. Alright, cool. We have this. Let's add our gradients. So do the exact same thing as we were doing before, and we can start adding those nice gradients. Let's see, multiply, add a mask stack, add curvature. Okay. Tightness, levels, push that in a little bit. Cool. You get like a little bit of fading there, but that's still pretty stylized. That looks pretty nice. Now let's start adding sort of like a painterly sort of look, I think. Let's add, just like make it brighter. Let's put this on add. So basically add is just like color dodge. So let's start masking this. We don't want it to be so uniform like this. It's gotta look super weird. So instead, what we're going to do is start masking this. Let's make it as dark as possible so none of it shows up for now. And instead, let's do like a nice, interesting pattern, I think. This is a basic noise. But no, let's add a whirly noise, I think. Cool. Amplitude, frequency. Okay. That's now is like a weird ball pattern. But what you can do, let's see. Yes, you can do distortion. So that's your basic noise. Drag it over here. Okay, so we have this. Let's turn this off for now. So we have like a basic noise as a mask right now. So you can sort of see what it's doing. Let's turn up the frequency. Let's turn down amplitude. Turn the frequency so we get a little bit more of stuff in there to work with. Turn up the amplitude maybe. Linearity. Okay, so we've got like a sort of like a nice pattern right now. What you can use other layers here for is you can actually use them to distort the layers under it. So let's see. Oh yeah, this should not be on the normal layer mode. What we want is the additional layer mode, I think. And just to distort it. So we start getting these like nice, interesting textures here. We can sort of like distort it a lot more. So it's big. Okay, that's sort of interesting. Might be too frequent though. Okay, cool. Nice distortion, and then we can start masking these out. Let's see. Let's use position gradient on multiply layer. So you can start to see we're getting like a interesting pattern on top. We can add a nice normal also on multiply. So we can mask it out from specific directions. So we can mask out from bottom directions. So we can start, let's see, maybe this was a bit too much. So you can see what I'm doing, right? Yeah, I'm starting to add like these like interesting patterns on top, and they're not gonna be as realistic, but you're basically just like messing with the textures in order to get interesting stylized textures out of it. I can like do this a lot crazier as time goes on because you can just keep distorting your textures really. Let's see how far. Let's see if I can get a little bit further. I mean, does this make sense so far?
Yeah, it's a lot simpler than I thought it would be, honestly.
Yeah, it's honestly not that crazy. Let's use this as another distortion layer. Yeah, so you sort of get these nice, like, almost paintbrushy effects. Okay, let's... I think this was sort of nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's see. Just back multiply. Now it's very intense. But yeah, so now you sort of get these like interesting sort of like effects on top. And you can start masking these out as well. So for example, let's add another simple pattern. Multiply that out. Amplitude. Yeah, so now you start getting these like stylized texture effects on top. Cool. I think actually this is quite interesting for a mech. Yeah, you can get some like really almost like brush strokey effects out of this. But yeah, I don't think Substance Painter is going to work for me today, so we can do one of these next time. So yeah, I think let's just wrap it up for now. We can talk more about like this kind of stuff later.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. Cool. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out, though. I really appreciate you watching the stream. Hope it was useful for you.
Yeah, it was, there's so much to like kind of play and experiment with. Like, I'd like to get there someday.
It's fine. It's really a matter of just like having time and experimenting with this kind of stuff. We can. If I have time, I would be happy to do like a prop once I sort out like Substance Painter. I can like do like a demo for of that for like the concept art club. Actually, I mean, I could also stream it on my site as well. But either way, like I would be happy like to teach you guys more of that, because like that is honestly a lot more powerful than Mixer. Mixer is cool because it has the distortion tool. Also, obviously, you've got like you can actually just paint. Like you can. Obviously, let's see. Add surface layer. Oh no, that's surface. That's not the same thing. So add paint layer, and like actually just start painting on this, right? Like obviously, like you can just start painting on it. But yeah, you can do that as well. But Substance has even more stuff, so it's got really good mesh selection tools. So you can like, okay, for example, if like these tubes were not connected to the main body, I could just press on that. It would just like only apply to like the tubes. It's very cool. You can also like bake out a lot more of these like different modifiers to use. It's got like different generators. It's got like a light generator. So for example, you can like calculate where light would bounce and only apply like material to those parts. It's got a bunch of smart materials. Quixel also has smart materials, but those mostly will only work for realistic stuff. But yeah, so we can do like a proper talk on that next time if you guys would like.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think I'll sign off for this stream for now, though. Thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. We did a lot of like just like basic shader and sort of like texturing introduction today. I hope it was useful. And thanks for being here, Tessa. Saren's work is actually really cool. I have his links on the stream. Go check them out if you've got some time or an interest in cool work. And I think that's good enough for today. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.